Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm here with Ben Kosky, Kevin Gallen and Ian McCullough to talk a bit about QPR, the transfer window, the victory against Watford last night, and amongst a few other things. Kevin, we'll start with you. We've spoken on here previously about the importance of strengthening that midfield area and the need to get more additions in, especially with obviously Tom Carroll looking like he could even be out for the season or potentially coming back a lot later in the season. Do you feel like they've done that adequately enough by bringing in obviously Stefan Johansson earlier on and now Sam Field? And what did you kind of make of the Sam Field signing yesterday?
Yeah, well, that was a late on. I don't really know much about him. Was he at Charlton at the start of the season?
Yeah, he was at Charlton on loan last season.
Well, I've just texted my brother because he's there. I just texted him Sam Field ? So if he gets back to me, I'll let you know in the next half an hour. Stefan Johansson as well. He's a good player. He's captain of Norway, they said last night. I didn't realise he's still the captain. But Stefan Johansson over the last few years, when I've watched QPR play Fulham, yeah, he's a good player. Very comfortable on the ball, got a good football, but he's just a good all-round player. So I think that's a real improvement on the midfield anyway. But then you got Sam Field, but also, you know, we got the other centre back of Hull. Is it? I don't know how to say his name. If you can
Device.
He could come in, and then if a situation where we're a bit like Jeff Cameron can move back into midfield. So I think we're quite well covered there at the moment, defensively, in midfield.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think we saw that from Stefan Johansson last night? Obviously, you can tell he's still kind of getting up to speed a little bit because he's not played in so long. But do you think we kind of got a glimpse of that quality, like you say, in last night's game?
Yeah, I think he's just a good player. I mean, Dunbar will sit there and play the defensive role. So you need someone who can run a bit forward and a bit more of a playmaker. Good left foot, can see a pass. I think he's a good addition to the team and hopefully can get up to speed as quick as possible. He looked quite fit to me last night, maybe because he hasn't played that much over the last few months or the last season or so, that they were just, you know, to get that match fitness. They don't want him to pick up a little niggly groin or a little calf injury if he plays too long on his first game. So I think he'll be up to speed pretty quick. He looks a fit lad anyway.
What about you, Ben? Were you pleased with the additions late on? I mean, what do you make of Sam Field, and do you think the club's done enough this window?
Well, I think, Sam Field was a bit left field, I suppose. Kind of came out of nowhere. You obviously knew they wanted to bring in another midfield player for cover, but then it's an interesting one because it looks as though long term they're thinking he may be a permanent signing if he does well, which would obviously be the case with Geordie Device as well. I think they've done well because it's been targeted recruitment. They've looked at which areas of the squad needed something different, and they've addressed those. I think the only question mark maybe is whether there's enough cover on that left-hand side, or are they still a little bit thin on the ground? Lee Wallace came back in last night. I probably am more of a fan of Lee Wallace than a lot of people are. I think he does offer a lot in that left wing back role, certainly going forward, gets up and down, he puts some decent balls into the box, and I think he's quite a good organiser too. With that said, he did make an error that led to the Watford penalty last night, and there's also the question as to whether he's likely to stay fit for the next 3 months, which his record suggests is unlikely. So I think that would be the only question, is whether they've got enough on that left hand side. But otherwise, I think that looks a really pretty balanced squad in terms of people going out as well. Right to say Samuel, we knew was probably going to leave. Either it was just a case of now or in the summer. And I think Liam Kelly going on loan to Motherwell was the only other major departure. So yeah, I think they've done pretty well, and that squad looks a bit more balanced to me than perhaps it did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, you've touched on it there. That sort of brings me quite nicely on to what I was going to ask Ian. Obviously, Ian, you've spoken a lot about the kind of left-sided troubles that the team's had this season, and not been too impressed with the left-back options that have been used. Were you pretty disappointed that they didn't bring in a wide sort of left-sided player to either play as a conventional left-back or as a left wing-back?
I think sometimes your scouting is as good as about who you don't sign as rather as who you do sign. And if the right option isn't there to bring him in, then don't waste the money you know, you got the summer to find an option that's better than what they already have. And, you know, half the season to go, you can probably muddle through the combination of, you know, Wallace, Barbet can play there if he has to. And if they're really desperate, they can put Hammerline and back at left back. But yeah, Wallace did okay last night. That was a tough ask, that was. You're playing wing back, you've been played for 3 months, and you're playing against a £30 million winger in Sarr. And I thought he did an okay job. He gave a good old-fashioned Ron Atkinson reducer on him in the second half, which he didn't really do much after that. And it was a bad challenge, and he got rightly booked for it. But, you know, he did what he had to do. He looked a little bit rusty, which is understandable. I mean, he's never going to be, you know, your permanent answer. But, I mean, if you can muddle through him there, he can, you know, do a job. I mean, you know, you could move Barbet across if Device is fit. He's a left-sided player. But the fact that the two centre-backs in Dickey and Barbet look so good together at the minute, would you want to break them two up? I thought Barbet has taken his fair share of stick over the time, but I thought last night was probably his best game I've seen him play. QPR, he had a really, really good game, and he, you know, since they've gone to 3 at the back, it suits him much better. And you know, do you switch it up? But also I think, you know, the addition of Austin obviously has made a difference up top, and he was very good last night. He played really well, Charlie. And I was just just curious, you Kevin, what you've made of him. I mean, you've obviously been in a similar situation where you've been brought back to the club as a huge fan favourite, and you know, it runs on the board, so to speak, in your first stint, and he's come back in a kind of similar situation. What's that pressure? What was that pressure like for you when you had to come back?
Well, first things first, Ian, you touched on the 3 at the back. I think we should all just like tap ourselves on the back, and it's our recommendation for the manager to go 3 at the back. So we'll do that. Regarding Austin, yeah, I mean, if you get quality balls in the box from wide for Austin, he'll score. And the positions, especially from Todd Kane's right-hand side crosses, he sort of starts just in between the opposition's right back and centre back, and that's how he scored the goal. He takes the gamble. Sometimes managers will say, try and run across the shoulder of a defender and get a crossing. Charlie Austin doesn't really do that. He sort of he waits for that ball to get over that second centre half to right. So if it's coming in from Todd Kane, the right-sided centre half, and for the goal, it worked perfectly. He did a great cross in, and he's gambled, and a fine header. Yeah, I mean, under pressure, yeah, it was a little bit for me when I came back that time. He obviously likes being at QPR, or loves it. I think he can stay at home and travel in. That's a big thing, because when I came back, it was a situation where I was living in, I was playing for Barnsley. I was living up north, and I just on my own. I just weren't enjoying the football. The football weren't great, and also just sort of, you know, when you go home, there's nothing to do. You're just sitting there watching telly, and I just wanted to come back home. And I remember when I signed for QPR the second time, I just thought, look, I can't waste this opportunity, because I want to stay at home, basically. And I grafted, and it all worked out really well. So hopefully, you know, the situation with Charlie is he's on loan. Is it to the end of the season? Has he got a year left at West Brom, or is he finished?
I think he's up. I think his contract's up.
I think he's up. Yeah, I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that he's up.
I think his contract's up, and they got an option for another year if they want
right,
to.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
So, you know, who knows? Because he obviously would like to stay. You know, it depends on the money. But also, if West Brom get relegated, a new manager comes in, will they want to take him back and activate that option? But by the way he's playing at the moment, he loves being at QPR, and I'm sure if they could get some deal done, he'd stay.
I think another factor you touched on that, Kev, is West Brom. If they were to get relegated, then you would think they'd look at Charlie Austin as a sort of player who was proven Championship goal scorer.
Yeah.
They'd probably be more inclined to keep him on, you would think. And we might also see something similar with someone like Stefan Johansson. I don't know if that has been mooted at all, that maybe that could turn into something permanent. But again, you would feel if Fulham were to stay up, then he's probably more likely to be a player they'd be looking to offload than they would be if they're to go down. So all these things perhaps in the mixer with Austin and one or two others as well, I guess.
So the thing with loan players, as we all know, is Johansson, Charlie Austin, because they haven't been playing, they're not in the shop window, they're thinking about their futures, what am I going to do next season? And they think, well, I've got to play, I've got an opportunity to play at QPR, an opportunity if I impress, I'm not only impressing the QPR management and the board, but I'm also impressing other clubs for next season. So it's a difficult one, you know. They play really well, other clubs will probably be in for them.
Ian, I just want to touch on something you said earlier about obviously the left back issues. Talk about muddling through. Do you think then the options they've got at the moment won't hurt the team too much that it's going to risk getting into a relegation fight, or do you think they've still got enough there, or are you still worried that it might? Obviously, we saw last night the goal coming from the left. Are you worried that it still might be a big weakness when it comes to getting enough results to stay in the division?
Yeah, I think they showed enough last night that they won't go down. But I mean, I know what you're saying. Yeah, maybe more goals might come from the left, but it's a case of just, defensively they've looked a lot better. They're not conceding multiple goals a game as they have been, previously. It's when they are conceding, it's maybe one a game. I can't recall the last time they conceded more than one in a game, the Fulham game, but that was in the cup. But yeah, possibly. But again, it just goes back to, do you bring in someone that's not much better than what you already have just for the sake of having another left back, or do you wait until the summer to bring someone in that is, an upgrade? I know they're interested in a young lad at Tottenham, Dennis Sirkin, but he's just back from injury. He's just back training at Spurs. He's highly rated at Tottenham. I think they were sniffing around and at him, so he may be one that might come in on loan for a season in the summer. But I'm not au fait with the lower leagues as much as maybe some of yourself are, Dan, but what's available in League One, but there have to be someone out there that can step up. But January, particularly in the current climate, is it a good time to be splashing out money on bringing someone in? Maybe not. And if the player isn't there, then
like you say, I guess they didn't find anyone that was better enough than what they already have, because like you said, they bring in another left back and he's not much better than Wallace or Hammerline, and then it's almost pointless, isn't it? You don't want to sign someone for the sake of it. So they might have tried and there might not have been the options there, which is completely understandable, I guess. But for me, it still looks like a weak point of that team. I think Lee Wallace, he has got his strengths, like you said, he's got the experience, and he can be a bit of a leader and he can help the younger guys. But to me, he just looks a little bit out of his depth sometimes in the games that I've seen. And I think the decision to try and clear that ball last night was really costly. And I feel bad for Jeff Cameron. It was a clumsy challenge, but he wasn't helped out at all by the position he got put in by his left back. So, on that, Kevin, I mean, we saw Jeff Cameron in, like I said, in the back three last night. They've got another defender now in Jordi Device. Hopefully that's right. Can you see him going into the back three and Jeff Cameron moving out of defence, or do you think Jeff Cameron is better as a centre back, and would you like to see him stay there?
I think Jeff Cameron's probably better suited at this time of his career, his age, at centre back. I don't think he really has the quality or the legs now to play in midfield. I think he looks like quite a big leader. He's actually the captain, so it's going to be a tough decision by the manager to drop the captain and bring in a new lad. So, and let's be fair, since we've gone to three at the back, we've actually looked so much more solid with a really good keeper behind him. And there's only one silly mistake really with the penalty. And like you said, Wallace, poor clearance, but then Jeff Cameron really, he's dived in there, and it's a poor challenge when there's people behind him who maybe if he does step past him can get a block on the shot. I think they'll leave it for the moment. Regarding the left back spot, could Barbe go into that left wing back, or is that sort of maybe a step too far, for mobility and pace? I don't know, but that's an option. If De Vries comes in and Barbe can step across to the left side. But I'd just sort of keep it as it is. Todd Kane played well last night. He did have the freedom of the whole Vicarage Road, but I thought he had a lot of the ball. First half, he had a lot of opportunities to put a decent ball in, and he didn't. But then, for the But the Austin goal was a great cross, wasn't it? So they're the ones that count.
Right, we're going to rate QPR's January transfer business out of 10. So I'm going to come to you first, Ben. Out of 10, what would you give the signings that QPR have made, taking also into account what they haven't done this window?
I love the way you've come to the guy who hates the transfer window most, Dan.
Well, it'd be a nice start.
It would, yeah. How do I rate it? I mean, firstly, it's hard to judge until we've seen more of. Obviously, we haven't seen Gudais play at all,
yeah.
And you know, Johansson's only had one game. I mean, on paper, I think it's gone very well. I would give it a 7 or an 8, something like that. And you know, you probably, if you want to compare transfer windows with years gone by, you know, QPR had an awful lot of 2s and 3s for about a 10-year period. So, you know, 7 or 8, I think is about where I would put it, to be honest.
Kevin, what would you give it out of 10 if you had to put a number on it?
I would say, I'm, as Ben always copies me, I'm quite similar to Ben on this one. Going on last night, and we haven't seen Sam Field and De Vries play, but just going on from last night, Johansson, Austin, anyone else? Am I right? We only done 4, is that right?
Try and remember now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So we haven't seen the other 2. So at the moment, it's a 7. We'll have to come back to this question.
Yeah, we'll revisit it in a couple of months when, depending on how it's going. Ian, if you had
Johansson and Austin, 7.5.
Yeah.
Those 2.
Ian, what would you say?
Yeah, I'd probably go along with that. I mean, it's far too early to say. I mean, we're only a calf injury away from any of these players being sidelined. A lot of them haven't played for a long time. So, you know, 2 months down the line, they could all be injured. We could be saying it's a disastrous transfer window. So, but, you know, on paper, what we've seen last night, then, you know, looks fairly encouraging. I think what's helped them, they've got a game Saturday and they don't play again until the following weekend. So there isn't that back-to-back, you know, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday kind of, but that does come later in the month. There's, you know, a real kind of congestion of fixtures. So you just hope they can kind of get them up to speed and keep them fit. And, you know, we don't get any of these sort of little calf strains that Kev mentioned earlier on that can happen when players haven't played for a long time. But yeah, but on paper, it looks, you know, a reasonable window.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it has to be like a 7, at least if you're just looking at the signings they've made, like you said, on paper, and obviously we're not seeing too much of them yet. But the Charlie Austin one was obviously massive, bringing him back. And there's always that concern, isn't there? Because he's so loved by the fans for what he did before. If he comes back and it doesn't go too well, it sort of, you know, taints his kind of legacy, I guess, at the club. But certainly so far, he scored 2 goals, hasn't he? 2 away wins. So he couldn't have asked for a better start, really. So I think for that signing, that, you know, boosts it up a lot. I do think.
Oh, Dan, Kev, can I just ask you, what do you think of Austin? Does he look a better player or better all-round player since he's come back than he was first time around?
I think he's quite similar. I think he's using his brain a little bit more. I don't think he's moving as much as he did before, but he's taking up really good positions, especially, like I said, when the ball's coming into the box. I mean, he's not running around like. That's why he needs a Lyndon Dykes or a Macaulay Bond to, you know, maybe stretch the defence. And it's quite similar to me when I got older. I needed pace around me, so then I could come and link the play up. So he sort of needs like runners to stretch the defenders to go that way, and then he can come, lay it off, and get in the box. I think no, he's done well. He's done well. His finishing has always been good. What he's very good at is reading the flight of the ball from wide very early and getting into those positions. And like I said, that little position he takes up between the fullback and the centre half is very good. And if the right ball comes in, he'll finish it. But also, he's become a focal point for the people who are putting the ball in, where before they might be putting the ball in and thinking, nah, we ain't going to score from this. Now they're putting the ball in thinking we've got a chance of scoring. So he gives that a bit of confidence.
Some of the passing he did last night.
For the fans, the management. Sorry, Dan.
No, I was just saying some of the passes he did last night as well. There was a couple in the first half where he literally picked it up and switched the play right across. I can't remember him really passing like that before when he was a kid. I think he has sort of growing, hasn't he?
The ball last night was, especially first half, the out ball for QPR last night was Todd Kane down the right-hand side. He had the freedom of the whole right-hand side. So that ball was on constantly, wasn't it?
Mm. Yeah, he got a lot of freedom down the right. And like you said, that we touched on earlier, I think Kane, that for me was maybe the best game he's had in the QPR shirt. But we were speaking about it as well, and obviously just before we started recording, about his delivery, and obviously that's where he's got to improve now, isn't it? So he had a lot of crossing opportunities last night, and probably most of them weren't the deliveries he was looking for. So if he can improve that, I think he can be a really big player for QPR, especially in that wing back system. I think he gets a lot more freedom as opposed to with just him as a conventional fullback where he's got to concentrate on the more defensive side of things. But Ben, do you think, obviously Mark Warburton, we know his obviously position was under review not that long ago. He was under a lot of pressure after a really bad run of results. I think it was no wins in 10 in the end, was it? 10 or 11? I think it might have been 10. Do you think he deserves a lot either way? Do you think he deserves a lot of credit for the way they've turned it around recently, and obviously 3 away wins in quite quick succession?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the 3 away wins, Dan, because that is one of the things that gives me a lot of confidence for the rest of the season, is the fact Rangers have actually won more games away from home now than they have at home. And that's pretty unusual. I mean, I can't remember, QPR sides traditionally tend to be a lot stronger at home. And
not win away for ages in the Premier League. Am I remembering that correctly? When Harry Redknapp, wasn't there some crazy run where it's like the longest without a way something?
I think you may well be right, and I mean I'm thinking further back than that, which Kevin will remember because he was playing. But the team that was relegated in '96. I mean that was a good example, I think, of a team that actually picked up quite a few results at home, but just couldn't buy a win away, as I recall. And what we're seeing at the moment is really the reverse, almost, is the team looking very, very strong away from home. Now, whether that's because of the odd situation we're in, so there's no fans inside the stadium, so home advantage perhaps doesn't count for what it usually does. But nevertheless, it's very encouraging, because I think often when a team is struggling, you're looking at the fixtures to come and you're thinking, where are our wins coming from? And you go to the home games, and at the moment with QPR, you think, well, actually they've been to Watford and won, been to Cardiff and won, been to Luton and won, been to Norwich and got a draw. You think actually there's an awful lot of fixtures there that could be confident of taking points for. But going back to your question, Dan, which I've avoided, was about the manager. I think he does deserve a lot of credit, because whether it's from listening to our words of wisdom or not, he has changed it around. He has gone to a system that I think suits the players he's got a lot better, and Todd Kane is a good example of that. Not really a convincing defender, but as a wing back, he's certainly got a lot more to offer. I think Barbe, we've spoken about, who looks much more comfortable in a 3 than he did as a centre-back pairing. So I think he's looked at what he's got, and credit to the manager for that. And I think as long as I can continue as I have been, then really his position shouldn't be coming under pressure. I mean, with that said, of course, at this stage of the season, you do need to get to safety, and probably that's still going to take another, 5-6 wins, you would think, somewhere along the line. So at the moment, wait and see. But I certainly don't think he should. Some people might have said he was on the brink, perhaps a month ago. So certainly he's a lot more secure than he was at that stage.
I think the home form is definitely something they've got to look to improve. I mean, obviously losing to Derby at home, despite all the away wins, obviously they've kind of overshadowed the home defeat at Derby, but that was a really poor result, wasn't it? Especially where Derby are in the table and the season they've had. So it's definitely somewhere they've got to look to improve, as well as obviously keep picking up results away from home. But saying that, it's another tricky one on Saturday. Blackburn Rovers at home, who've had a good season. Kevin, what are you kind of expecting from this one, and what's your prediction for the game?
It's a tough game, and it's a typical QPR where they have such a great result in the midweek that we're all expecting it to follow up and it's very tough. And talking about home games and stuff, and we won more away from home. Sometimes the emphasis and the pressure is on at home, where you have to go out and win. Where sometimes you're playing away from home, and your sort of emphasis is we're not losing. And you know, the last 3 away games have been, you know, we go from a solid base at the back, and we'll contain whatever comes at us in the first maybe 15, 20 minutes. Not that it did last night, by the way, because we started very well. And then we go from there. We're at home, you sort of go for it all guns blazing from the start, especially when there is a crowd there. But the mentality is we're playing at home, we're expected to win, get 3 points. So this is a tough game because Blackburn are pretty good. They actually, the game we played against them, I don't know when it was, back in October and November, I was impressed with them. Got a lot of pace going forward. Armstrong's on form. They got the Harvey Elliott is a good player. They got some good players, good attacking players. Tony Mowbray always plays a similar very sort of similar style to what we do. Pass the ball on the floor, move quick. You know, he's always been an attacking manager. So I think it's going to be a tough game. I'm going to go 1-1.
Ben,
well, obviously, I mean, I was thinking 1-1, but I can't say that now. I mean, yeah, as Kevin said, they are a dangerous team, Blackburn, and they also they have a tendency to be doing nothing, but then suddenly conjure up a goal out of nowhere, particularly late in the game. And another player who I think Kevin mentioned, Armstrong, of course, who's the top scorer. Gallagher is one who tends to come on and find a goal off the bench as well. So I think, yeah, it's a difficult game. Blackburn are actually, I mean, they are one of the top scorers in the league. So I think a draw, I'm going to say actually 2-2. I think it's going to be one of those games. Rangers have looked a bit better at scoring goals of late. And I think if we can pick up a point from that, that would be pretty good. So I'm not going to copy Kevin exactly. I'm going to go 2-2 instead.
Ian, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to be the voice of doom. I think we'll lose this. I think we'll lose it 2-0.
Glad it's not just me.
Blackburn are a really good side. Honestly, they're the best side I've seen this year. Armstrong's really good. The lad Harvey Elliott, who was actually on the books at QPR, they somehow let go. He's at Liverpool now. He's 17. He looks unbelievable. What a player he looks. Brereton, I liked him when he was at Forest. They're a good side. They're well managed. I think it'll be a tough game. I'm sorry to be the voice of doom. I think we'll lose 2-1.
That was actually my prediction as well.
Ian, I don't want to go for a pint with you, mate.
I'm the eternal optimist, but
yeah, no, I agree with Ian. Actually, I think they're a really good team, Blackburn. So I think it's going to be really tough. I'll probably say 2-1 as well, to be honest. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again soon.